Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review Goosebumps Season 2, Episode 5, and it is called The Boy Who Cried Monster. So, this is actually probably the best episode that they've done so far this season. And I think that the thing that immediately made me a lot more amenable to this episode was the fact that they called this episode The Boy Who Cried Monster, which means that I think that it's like them saying, look, this is a totally different thing. This isn't the girl who cried monster. This isn't that story, And so I'm not going to complain that it wasn't the story of Lucy going to the library to, see Mr. Mortman and he's a monster. It's not that story. So, so this episode turned out to be better than all the other ones that I've seen so far. It might even be better than all the ones from last season. So this was probably their best episode so far. Overall, I think that they did a pretty good job with the episode. I still do have my complaints and my criticisms, but I do think that out of all the episodes that I've seen of the show, that this is probably the best one, because I think that I've come to realize, and Safi has realized it too, this show is not Goosebumps. And whenever the show is trying to be like Goosebumps, it's just a fail because they're not adapting the stories that are from the books at all. They're taking little bits and pieces of them and putting it in with all this human drama that nobody cares about except for maybe a teenager somewhere. It's I identify with this YA drama, nobody else cares about the human drama. That was never a part of the Goosebumps books. It wasn't in any of the Goosebumps episodes, but it is the majority of the show. But this episode, it's its own thing. It takes little elements though, and so it kind of feels like, honestly, if the people who made this show, if they just made their own show and they didn't call it Goosebumps, and they did this episode, it would be a really good episode. I would say it's a really good episode. It for the most part. There are some issues with it. So let's get started. First off, I'd like to say I did look up on IMDb, and Murph is not in the rest of the season. So that character, when he showed up at the end of that haunted car episode and he crashed, it meant nothing, because we're never going to see anything from him again. He's completely gone now, which is not very good writing. As predicted, Ross is not a bad guy as of now. He's just trying to find out what's going on like the teenagers are. He discovers an underground chamber where black goo squirts out of it. Good thing he had the hazmat suit on. The teens just stop investigating the tunnels, though, due to seeing their dad being there. So, as I predicted, the teenagers going there to investigate was completely pointless. I don't know why they wouldn't just talk to Anthony about it anyway. Up to that point, out of all the people in the whole world, if I was Devin or Cece, the number one person I would want to talk to about what's going on is Anthony, because look at all the investigation that he did, and look at how much care he went into, trying to find out the truth of what's going on. But there is a big gaping plot hole, and that is the fact that what ends up happening in this episode is that it turns out that Anthony had a tear in his hazmat suit, and he got black goo exposed onto his skin. The problem is that, remember in episode 3, where I think where he he got Joe Jr. or Trey. He got Trey's hoodie out of the cooler, and he didn't put any gloves on, and so he got black goo off of that too. There was black goo in the cooler with Trey's clothes. So it makes no sense, like, all of a sudden, like, oh, we can't be exposed to this black goo, but he touched it. There was some goo on that shirt, on that sweater, hoodie, whatever, so I thought that's kind of weird. That's kind of a plot hole, in my opinion. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, so CJ is the focus of this episode, which I thought was good because up to this point, he has not been really a character at all. He's just been kind of like a joke who comes on screen and he's like, here's your order. Oh yeah, I didn't eat any of the food, by the way. But he's a good actor, and I was really excited to see his story because of the lack of his character so far this season. So his story is he really wants to manage his mom's restaurant, but she won't let him because he is constantly giving away food for free. He's eating other people's food, which is stealing. But here's the thing. It takes all of one conversation for her to be persuaded otherwise. He's like, I got some ideas. And these ideas are things like copying other restaurants by calling their restaurant Gwendy's, like Wendy's, and also falsely advertising that the restaurant has organic food by saying Gwendolyn's Organic. His mom doesn't also mention that he eats the food he's delivering. She never mentions that. She only mentions that, like, you deliver food without getting the money from people, which is like, that defeats the whole purpose of being a delivery driver. And that's really, really bizarre. And I gotta say, too, I am a DoorDash delivery person, and if I ate somebody else's food, I would get kicked off of the app. That's a big no-no. Like, you can't just do things like that without any consequences. So here's a great line. This is probably the best line of the episode. This is from Cece. Cece is talking to Frankie, and she says, "You're going to work in a time like this?" So then Alex tells her mom about the haunted car. Her mom says, oh, it probably has to do with all those disappeared kids. I don't know how she would know that. That was kind of reaching. It's like, oh, just because it was a haunted car means it's related to this disappearance, this random disappearance. Like, that was really terrible writing, that little conversation. Like, she could have said, like, maybe it has something to do with, but maybe not, or something like that, because, haunted cars, like, not a lot of people really believe in haunted cars. They believe in ghosts, but they don't believe in haunted cars. So there has to be some sort of like a, there are probably haunted cars, that don't have anything to do with the disappearance of those children. So the mom, to jump to that conclusion that it all has to do with the missing kids, is basically like lazy writing. It's like, hey, we're running out of time because we're already halfway through the season, so we have to have everybody on board now. We got to get every character on board with what's going on, which is exactly what they did last season. And as I said last video, that last episode was a bridge episode into the second half of this season. So now we have to get all the teenagers banded together, and all the adults have to be on board. So it's very much like last season. Anthony is sick from the black goo. He has CJ deliver him soup, and this is when Anthony's eyeball falls out of his skull. And it was a really, really hilarious. Like, that's the thing, probably been the biggest problem so far with this Anthony character, is that there are these moments now where you have to take him seriously because he's like a bad guy after he has been sick from this black goo. But they just play off like all these jokes. And I just thought, like, they should take it a little more seriously, because this is what we thought would happen with Ross from Friends. We thought that he would be like a joke, and he is like a joke in this scene. His eyeball falls out. It is really hilarious, and CJ runs away, and it's a parallel to the story that he told this little girl earlier. He told this little girl, it might be his sister, she's hanging around the shop all day long. He told her this scary story about delivering food to an old woman, and she turned out to be a monster. So there is some kind of parallel here, too, with the girl who cried monster. And that's what I kind of liked about this, was that it was kind of a mix between Stay Out of the Basement and the girl who cried monster. But at the same time, it's like, again, this is not Goosebumps, and this is not like the stories from the books. It's like we're taking that stuff and we're kind of remixing it. So it really should just be its own thing, I think that they could take Goosebumps off of the title and they could get away with every single thing that they've done on the show so far. Like, literally everything. CJ and his mom check on Anthony. This is where we find out that Anthony has turned evil. And I got really excited because Anthony came out. He was in a dark blue shirt all of a sudden, and he just looked and acted like he had completely new energy. And he was just like, he's become like, he's in boss mode now. He's in like the black goo boss mode. But then CJ gets fired because his mom thinks that he was lying. And then Anthony calls CJ back so that he can come over and help him with something. And Anthony doesn't remember calling him when he comes over, but then he snatches him inside. So what's happening here is that Anthony is like switching personalities between himself and then the black goo persona, I guess. I don't know what else to call it. And oh god, there is now a love triangle between Devin and Frankie and Joe Jr. Trey. She is going to visit Trey and be with him because he needs her. And at this point, I gotta say, Frankie, she is a 10, but she's a whore. She's a total whore. Like, yeah, like, he needs you, but like, he needs you as a friend, because now you're with Devin. And you can't just be like, oh, well, now I'm just going to go be with Trey. It's like, that's really, really creepy and kind of like, I don't know, it's really disloyal. And it's like, if you broke up with him, it's like, it doesn't matter what happened. Like, you're with Devin now. And then Devin even starts roasting his own girlfriend as she's walking away. And there's also some stupid drama between Cece and Alex. And I was not aware up until this point, but apparently Cece is supposed to be a lesbian too. I never would have figured that out. I didn't think that was handled very well, because it's just kind of like, why? Like, it doesn't really make sense at all. It doesn't really fit into the story. It just feels like because last season they had a gay couple, so this season they have to have a lesbian couple, and it really doesn't work at all. It's just kind of like, it's like check marks. It's like filling in the blank check marks. Alex was a passable, like, lesbian character, but Cece is not at all. In fact, I would say Cece would have been perfect to play Carly Beth in The Haunted Mask. If I were the person casting Goosebumps, I would have cast the actress playing Cece as Carly Beth. She would have been perfect. She even looks like the actress from the original show a little bit. I wonder if anyone else notices that. Because so far I haven't really seen too many people talk about this season. Maybe that's because they're taking their time to watch it and they're not like binging it and, kind of ruining it by watching it all right now. So Alex's mom digs up a videotape that she took from the night the kids disappeared, and she gives it to Anthony to watch. It's called Camp Nightmare. Because there is... Okay, I'll explain it pretty soon. They have now stolen Camp Nightmare, and it's... really didn't even need to be called Camp Nightmare at this point. This girl invites Devin over to sit with her. She's this new character named Hannah, and she's clearly a villain. She's clearly like Libby from Attack of the Mutant, which is hilarious because I was saying that Frankie was going to be like that. Well, no, they have invented a new character named Hannah, and, it's really hilarious because she's like, there's this place near the tunnels, the subway, that where the evil stuff happens. And they used to have this camp there called Camp Nightmare. And really bad things used to happen there. How about I go take you there? This is the first time that she's met him, and she wants to take him to Camp Nightmare. And he was going to fall for it until Frankie called him and told him to go help her out, get into Anthony's basement to investigate. So I don't know why Devin has now turned into a dumbass, and I also don't know why he can't see that this girl's obviously a bad guy. I mean, she's so obviously a bad guy. It was so like cringeworthy to see him completely falling for it. Like, this reminds me of that stupid finale from last season where all the kids had their own hallucinations, and it was really just Slappy who was turning them into dummies. Okay. Now we get a scene between Frankie and Joe Jr. She is total whore mode, and she tells him, let's pretend the breakup never happened. And she even gives him a necklace. So yeah, she's a total slut, and I despise that. I don't know why they did that. They took this amazing love interest who's basically probably the hottest love interest of 2025 so far, and they made her a total whore. I don't know why they would do that. What so that they can have another love triangle after they did a love triangle last season and nobody liked it? Is that the writer's idea of good writing is we're just going to keep doing things that people didn't like in the first season? Fucking love triangles and shit? Nobody likes love triangles. Love triangles are for retards. Anthony is keeping CJ captive, and there is some gross out stuff where he spits out black goo and wants to feed it to CJ. The plan of this, guys, is to turn the whole city into goo people. So kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And then all of a sudden, when he is attacking CJ, Joe Jr. shows up. And by the way, Joe Jr. is pulling the abusive boyfriend, I'm trying to change act. And so he's like, I want to be a better person. I want to change. I want to be good for you and earn you back. And I want to be a good guy. And, so that's another, cringeworthy part of the story is that, this show is glorifying abusive relationships. So Joe Jr. cuts off Anthony's head and saves CJ. And this was another instance, too, where the character shows up at the very, very last minute because Anthony was just about to turn CJ into a goo person. And then his chopped off head starts talking. That was when this episode got bad again. Because you took that really interesting idea of combining the girl who cried monster and stay out of the basement. And again, it's there's just little squirts of Goosebumps stuff happening. And the whole girl who cried monster story, it's done. It's so anticlimactic. And they're making a joke out of like, oh, look, it's Ross from Friends and his head is chopped off and it's talking by itself. And it's like, this is stupid and corny. I mean, that's even goofier than the old 90s show. And then all of a sudden, too, after Alex was like done with Cece, all of a sudden she has popped back up. She's teleported to the teenagers who are going to go watch this videotape, the Camp Nightmare videotape. And all of a sudden she's like, oh, actually, I'll join you guys because I want to watch the videotape. Very, very convenient. Alex literally has no reason to be on the show other than to be a token lesbian. Because, like, her character, just, it's like she's just there. She doesn't really serve any actual purpose to the show other than so that they can fill in a checkbox, a check mark. And then Devin splits off from the group because he wants to go see Hannah, the mystery girl, who's obviously evil, because she wants to show him Camp Nightmare. And this was after, by the way, when he was done talking on the phone with Frankie, he saw that this mystery girl disappeared. So he wants to go after this girl who just disappears out of thin air and basically just like compliments him like a million times, like in a really kind of creepy, obviously evil kind of way. Really, really bizarre writing here. Finally, the fake doctor comes and she steals Anthony's head at the end. And the dialogue kind of makes you think that maybe she is actually a good guy. Because she says, like, something like, I can't stop the evil, but I can stop you. And she's referring to the black goo Anthony guy. So, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. And then at the very end, they ruin everything by playing gross rap music. That's been a consistent problem with this season, is playing really terrible music, really terrible rap music, and it's really kind of ugh. So it's really unfortunate because there was actually a fun story here trapped in this bad show, where it's all about this delivery driver who is delivering to the stay out of the basement house, and all of a sudden he is now the bad guy, and his mom doesn't believe him that he's a monster, and that was such a fun idea and such a fun like little twist on those stories, and they kind of ruin it with all the stupid love triangle bullshit and then all the other stuff, like ending it prematurely, and it's just kind of like CJ's story really just got stolen out from under him by the main plot of the show, because they have to rush the show to an end. So, they have to just keep going and keep going and keep going. There's no room to just stop and say, hey, let's tell this contained story all about CJ and then move on next episode. They can't do that in modern television. There's no time to rest. There's no time to breathe. There's no time to just say, hey, like, let's slow down. Tell this one story. Nope, can't do that. So, I would give this episode a B, though. It is definitely the best episode of the season so far. Hopefully next episode is better, although I saw who wrote it, and I saw that she also wrote episodes from season 1. And, you can definitely tell she was definitely one of the problems of season 1 of hiring someone like that. So anyways, please like this video. Oh yeah, I'm going to be reviewing another episode. Never mind, I'll be back for episode 6. And I hope it continues to be as good as this episode was. Although I fucking hate stupid love triangle bullshit, and nobody wanted that in Goosebumps. So, Oh, God. Hey, everybody. Actually, I already did the hey, everybody. I am back to review episode 6, The Girl Next Door. Oh, my God. God, that episode was bad. It was really, really bad. And it should be no surprise because the person who wrote it is terrible, awful at writing. Oh, my God. Okay, let's get started. The fake doctor acts like she's a good guy. She's trying to help Anthony contain the black goo. So she's like melting it and causing it to go into this drain in the floor. And yeah, it's like we still don't really know like what is her motive. Where did she come from? How does she know about all this stuff? She says something like, I've been trying to contain the black goo for 30 plus years or something, but it's like, who really even knows? Because there's a lot of times in like Goosebumps books, where there's a character and they pretend like, oh, I'm a good guy and I've been trying to do all these things to help, and it turns out that they're like a bad guy, So I really don't know at this point if she's good or bad. And the episode further on kind of muddies the water, and just it's kind of like they have what is probably like a really simple explanation for what happened, and they're just kind of like throwing all these red herrings out there and trying to make you think like, what happened? What happened? But it's really like there's not very much speculation you can do. I think that that's like a big issue with the mystery. Like there's not a lot of like, it's just like with last season where there really wasn't any speculation because it was just ripping off Nightmare on Elm Street. The parents killed that kid, Harold, and he comes back for revenge like Freddy Krueger. So, yeah. Anyways, the kids watched the videotape, the Camp Nightmare videotape. I gotta say, they did do a good job at making like fake 90s looking video footage. And this is where we see that Hannah went to school with Anthony and his brother. We also see that the whole story here is that the brother dynamic is really kind of tragic because the older brother, he's kind of like a screw up, and he's like the pretty boy guy, and he's really not going to have like the best life, and so he really wants to go to Camp Nightmare so that he can become famous or something. And meanwhile, his brother is really smart, so he'll be really successful in life, and all that stuff with his experiments. So they do a good job at like developing the characters of Maddie and Anthony, and within this short amount of time, because it's worth noting this is a short episode as well. It is another short episode. We also get to see Jen is a teenager. She is the detective, and she is not only a bully, but she's a bitch. And she bullied Hannah. She was a terrible person as a teenager. And she even says that she hopes all the kids die at Camp Nightmare. Which, ugh. There were some really, like, I would say, like, the best part of this was the whole videotape with Hannah and, like, her whole story, like, because she's, like, the new girl, and she really likes Maddie, and so she agrees to come be, like, their cameraman and come with them to Camp Nightmare, and I really enjoyed her story because even though this is not The Girl Next Door, which once again, this show should not be Goosebumps. It is not Goosebumps. It's not the show. It's not, like, when you adapt stories from books, you don't just take what you want to take and do what you want with it. You actually adapt the stories. You can still, like, add in your own stuff. I mean, the 90s show did that all the time. But to just take bits and pieces and just squirt little Goosebumps squirts here and there, like, ooh, there's a little squirt of Goosebumps. Psst. It doesn't work. This should have just been its own thing. and then I would have liked it a lot more. But the whole story with Hannah, I actually really liked because they did a good job at making it kind of depressing and tragic. And the way that, you know that you're watching this videotape where you know all these kids are going to die at the end. We've seen stuff like that before on, like, YouTube and such, where you see, like, this is the last video footage that anyone saw of this person while they were alive. And it's like, they did do a good job with that in terms of making it feel really tragic. They had a lot of good music this episode, too. They had a lot of good, like, horror music, like scary, creepy, depressing music. And it's just too bad that they're not interested in actually adapting the stories from the books, because they could have definitely done the girl next door story. So, yeah. Anyways, the Hannah actress, too, she was really, really good. Like, she is probably the best actor out of all the kid actors. Well, they're not really kids. They're quote-unquote kids. Young adults, I should say. She did a really good job at playing, like, this tragic teenage character, as well as playing, like, this malevolent kind of, like, trickster ghost character. I really, really enjoyed her acting in this episode, and I felt like she actually did the character from the book justice, even though they didn't even tell that actual story. So, like, somehow her performance, like, it was really good. Like, it reminded me of last season, where the girl who played the quote-unquote Carly Beth, like, she did a pretty good job in her one episode, and the rest of the season she was complete trash. So the teens are walking to the fort in this, because most of this episode is just this found footage videotape. The teens are walking to the fort, and there's a rabbit that jumps out, and it scares one of the kids, and he says something about, he calls the rabbit a he. And then one of the girls in the group says, or her. And it's like, really? Really? You made a joke about pronouns with a rabbit? Really? Are you serious? Number one, besides the fact that it's a stupid joke, because it's like, who cares? Who fucking cares? Like, seriously? Like, it's mentally ill writing. Whoever wrote this episode, like, really, really weird jokes that they think are, like, funny. But number two, nobody in the 90s would be talking about pronouns. Nobody gives a shit about pronouns in the fucking 90s. I don't care if this girl is a weird girl, or she's different. Nobody in the 90s would give a flying fuck about the pronouns of a fucking rabbit. Are you fucking serious, modern day Goosebumps? Get that fucking pronoun bullshit out of my fucking Goosebumps. Okay, I gotta say that right there. So in the videotape, we see that all the kids, they get killed. And then Hannah actually survives. She picks up the video camera. She basically has like a 5-minute Blair Witch Project session with like some kind of a monster that's in the fort thing. I thought it was like subway tunnels or something. I guess I was wrong, but like, she gets chased around by this monster and then she gets killed too. Really, really sad. And then the fake doctor woman is there, and she shuts this tunnel to trap Hannah down with the monster to get killed. So it is obvious she is probably not really a good guy, because she literally, I think she pushed her down there, or she just didn't even attempt to try to help her. And then, yeah. And one thing that's worth noting And they do bring this up in the episode, to be fair, but it's worth noting that this videotape would have basically solved almost the entire mystery. And it's worth noting because Jin the detective, the supposedly amazing, like, detective, she's like, oh my god, this detective that's going to help solve the case and find the kids, and they showed that part at the beginning where she had the pictures of all the kids, and she's really, really dedicated to this mystery. Well, she's so dedicated that she hid this videotape for 30 years. 30 years. She hid this valuable smoking gun piece of evidence that basically showed the entire story. I mean, the entire story on videotape. And this fucking dipshit detective hid it somewhere. Magically, it didn't get stolen because it was weird. It was inside like this stone statue, and somehow she had it hidden there. It looked like the place where, like, you know how people, like, they hide drugs in weird places? Like, there was this one time, I actually do have it on video. It's in Super Dumbasses, the movie, which is not a very good movie, but there was, we were at this park, and we were at this little, like, area with all these rocks, and in the rocks was this note that said that there was free weed. Enjoy. And it was supposedly hidden inside these rocks. And that's what it felt like to me. It's like, why in the 30 years that it's been hidden there did some homeless person not take it out of there and throw it away or something, and then, like, just put crack in there or something, you know, like, or something, like a water bottle or like a needle or something, like, I don't know, like, whatever the fuck, but, like, it's really unrealistic that tape was still there and that it's magically, nobody ever thought to look there. I mean, it's New York. It's New York! With the detectives, we hide evidence in statues, and we get it out 30 years later when it's too late, and we're like, hey, maybe we should solve the case or something. Maybe we should solve the case, and then we can have pizza and watch Friends on Netflix together later. This accent sucks. But, like, yeah, that's what it was like. It's like all of a sudden, randomly, this fucking dipshit detective has this tape and just gets it out. It's like, hey, Anthony, here's the tape that I should have given you, like, years and years ago. I didn't give it to you because I'm really, like, everything is all about me, and I was really not I didn't look like a good person on the video. So, like, seriously? Seriously? This is a detective. This is a detective. Oh my god. Like, this is, it is just, oh god, it is mind-blowing. This character is the worst detective I have ever seen. No, actually, no, Lee Harker from Long Legs. This woman, Jen, she can only be in competition for the worst detective on screen with Lee Harker from Long Legs, who was another terrible, terrible character who also hid evidence on purpose. But this one is worse, though, because she hid evidence that was like, it's like, this is the only evidence you needed. Whereas with Lee Harker, you know, that evidence probably wouldn't have done very much of anything. You know, like, it probably would have just been like, oh, well, the killer's really interested in you, so you're off the case, or something like that. You know, like, it wouldn't have been like a smoking gun like this videotape was. Ugh. And honestly, too, remember how Boss Anthony, when Anthony became Mr. Black Goo, and he was ranting and raving against her, and he kicked her out of his house and called her a terrible cop? I honestly agree with him. Like, honestly, like, this biatch for 30 years. 30 years! That would be like if someone had some kind of smoking gun evidence, let's just say to the JFK assassination, and they just hid it for all this time, and then randomly got it out and was like, maybe it's time to solve this case. Maybe it's time to solve this fucking case. She acted like she was so dedicated to solving this case at the beginning of the season, having all those pictures up on the wall, like some kind of like wacko, like a vigilante kind of thing, and yet all of a sudden she's just like, oh, let's just get this tape out and show it to Anthony now, because the show has to end because it's a modern TV show. It can't go on longer than 8 episodes. So we really need to solve this mystery already, because the show is just about over, and also the show doesn't pay very well because the show sucks. And so they don't have the money to pay anyone anything except for probably Ross. He probably got like millions of dollars to get his head chopped off and make botany jokes. And honestly, like, he deserves it, man. Like, out of all the stuff with this show, like, the actors are probably the best part of the whole show. But yeah, that was a rant, for sure. So Hannah is walking along with Devin, and she tells Devin to not pick up the phone. And keep in mind, at this point, this is so bad, too. I mean, there was also some cringe stuff with Trey and Frankie, the whole love triangle thing, and like there was some cringe stuff with that throughout the episode, but like it wasn't focused on. But this was yet another case, by the way, where it felt like if all this episode was just about this found footage adaptation of The Girl Next Door, it would have been an A episode. But it's the fact that it's all connected to this stupid mystery and all this stuff that like nobody cares about, and like this human drama, all the stuff surrounding this, just like last episode. That story idea of combining those two stories, The Girl Who Cried Monster and Stay Out of the Basement, was so much fun and such a great idea, but they ruin it by having all that other stuff surround it. Like, I feel like the people who made this show, maybe they should just tell like their own story, like just not call it Goosebumps, or stop connecting everything, because the connecting of things sucks, and the connecting of things kind of ruins these two good stories, in my opinion. But these kids know that Hannah is a ghost, and they tell Devin not to pick up the phone. And he's just like, okay. And keep in mind, Devin at this point is suspicious of Hannah. He doesn't know what's going on. And honestly, there's really no reason for him to have gone along with her other than he just wants to hit it and quit it. Like, that's literally the only reason. I hate to be so crude and superficial, but like, there's literally no other reason that, like, he knows that there's something up with this girl. And why would you go to somewhere like Camp Nightmare with someone that you don't fully trust? Because it's like, oh, maybe she could lead me to some information. It's like, just because she's a girl doesn't mean that she couldn't be like some kind of a malevolent force against you. So I just thought that was stupid. And then she's like, Devin, we need to focus now. And he just hangs up the phone. Like, are you serious? Like, he is almost at this point an even bigger bitch than Joe Jr., aka Trey, for that. For like, oh, I guess I can't talk on my phone for a few minutes because we gotta focus. Like, are you serious? Like, that was terrible. That was just terrible. And you know why? The real reason why he couldn't pick up the phone? Because the writers would have then had to explain how the kids would have told him this helpful information about Hannah, and then he would still go with her so that we could still have the rest of the episode happen. So he couldn't pick up the phone because the writers painted themselves into a corner, basically. Now, at this point, the kids are on their way to Devon. And they are at like the old folks home watching this video with the grandma. And that was another really strange thing, by the way, was that, this grandma, even though she has dementia, she knows that her son was killed, or disappeared and killed in this place. And these fucking pieces of shit children, not children though, young adults, these piece of shit young adults were gonna show this video where her own son was killed. Like, what the hell were they thinking? Why would they want to do that? Like, are you serious? Why would you do... Like, are you kidding me? Like, these are the characters that I'm supposed to like? They're showing a snuff video to his own mother. Why would you do that? So, anyways, that was bad too. I forgot to even mention that. See, if none of this stuff was connected and we just had like some kind of contained story where it's just all about the girl next door, the videotape, whatever, it would have been fine, but you just had to connect it. And so there's all these little stupid things like that. And so they are on their way to Devon. And then all of a sudden, this is probably the worst editing I have seen in a year or more. I sounded really pretentious there, honestly. I apologize. This is the worst editing I have ever seen in a year or more. Yeah, I sounded like fucking Mr. Mortman up in this bitch. I'm sorry about that, guys. Like, I didn't mean to sound that pretentious. But it was the worst editing because they jumped from the kids have learned that he's with Hannah. And now you think, in a normal TV show written by good writers, what we have here is suspense. This is what happens when the audience and the characters know something that another character doesn't. In this case, Devon doesn't know that Hannah is bad and that she's a ghost. So what you do to make suspense is that you play out a scene with Hannah and Devon so that you feel really like, oh no, I hope nothing happens to poor Devon. So in this case, it would be Hannah and him explore this fort, and she says, let's go to the roof. You show the kids, they're on their way, they're trying to get there as fast as they can, and all of a sudden it's like this really dark scene where it's like, Devon, I know what your life is like. I know all these terrible things, like you're the screw-up twin, and I know all about your family, and all this stuff. Like, you draw that out. You slow down. Not everything needs to be rushed because it's shitty modern TV. You slow down so that you can have suspense. And when that happens, hopefully the audience will get a stomach ache and they will feel like, oh shit, I hope that Devon doesn't commit suicide, because this is a very scary situation. She could even push him off, maybe. I mean, we don't know. But instead, what the writers of Goosebumps decide to do is they decide to cut to when she has already brought him up to the roof and she is in the middle of negotiating his suicide. That's bad writing right there, and bad editing. Because it's like, okay, all of a sudden, he's going to kill himself? Like, it's so bizarre. It is so bizarre and bad. And then guess what, guys? You know how in this whole season, they can't go a single episode without characters showing up at the last minute, all of a sudden to save the day, or just happening to show up? Well, guess what happens, guys? All the teenage characters show up at the very last minute so that they can save Devon. And at this point, you actually do feel sorry for Hannah, but at the same time, it's like, okay, what is Hannah's motive? It's like she's kind of acting like Anthony did in the last episode, where she half, like, I guess, likes Devin, which is also kind of bizarre because keep in mind, she went to high school with his uncle, so this is kind of like an incestual, fucked up kind of thing happening. But on the other hand, it's like she's also evil and wants him to join her or something. Like, her character makes no sense at all. Hopefully her character gets a little bit more development because the actress deserves it. She did a really good job, even though the episode was what it was. Then, Devin, he really likes Hannah because the story wants him to. The story needs him to. So he tries to go after her as she jumps off the roof, which is really weird. Like, it was literally, you know, that saying that you heard as a kid where they say, if your friends jump off the roof, would you join them? You know, it's that type of thing. And Devin is such an idiot that he is going to jump off the roof with Hannah. And I don't know what the hell they were thinking. And then, of all people, Joe Jr., a.k.a. Trey, saves him. That was super cringe. Again, I'm getting such bad vibes from this show, trying to glorify abusive relationships and abusive boyfriends. He's known as a bully on this show. He's a bad guy, and he's probably an abusive boyfriend as well, the character I'm saying. And I don't know why. It's that typical thing nowadays where, like, for some reason, like, they want female characters to get with bad guys, and they want female characters to be in abusive relationships where they can't escape. And in my opinion, it's almost like it's so that they can trap these female characters into basically being like eternal victims. Because let's just be honest, like, if we didn't have any of this love triangle bullshit and she was just with Devin the whole season, it would have been a lot better. Like, nobody likes love triangles anymore. Nobody probably ever did, hopefully. And this is a stupid one at that because it's Goosebumps. People don't go to Goosebumps for love triangles ever. You know, I mean, I'm the number one. I'm the number one person who's complained that there needs to be a little romance sprinkled into Goosebumps because it's so unrealistic to have all these kids and none of them have a crush on their, like, girl best friend, you know? But I just think these love triangles, it's taking it too far. It's unnecessary, it's stupid, it's dumb. It doesn't add anything interesting to the story. So then, Alex is talking with Cece, and this is where we get more cringe. Alex says, I don't know why my mom treats me like a criminal. Well, Alex, your mom treats you like a criminal because you are. And you still have not gotten Murph to explain to your mom that he started the fire. Number two, your mom treats you like a criminal because you are admittedly a criminal. I mean, you talked about doing all these criminal things besides the thing that you were blamed for and sent to juvie for, and yet you're acting surprised that your mom treats you like a criminal. So that was really bizarre. I don't know who came up with that line or why they thought that that would make sense. It should have been like, I wish my mom didn't treat me like a criminal and I wish I wasn't one or something. Or not like that. Okay, that would have been cringe too. But you guys know what I mean. It makes no sense that, like, okay, now Alex is, like, not a criminal, but she literally is. Pushing a vending machine into the water is a criminal act. Okay? Like, and so it just mind-blowingly stupid. And then stupid after stupid, of course, we all knew this was going to happen because the person who wrote this episode, Cece and Alex get together and they share a kiss. Totally unnecessary. They basically stopped the entire show so that they can have these two girls kiss. Really, really gross. Really, really didn't need to see that on a show, especially Goosebumps. And it's just gross because it's like, this isn't like why I came to watch Goosebumps. Like, this doesn't have anything to do with what's going on. And it just confirms my suspicion that Alex's character is literally just a token lesbian. Like, she literally serves no other purpose on the show than having her shitty episode where it wasn't even like a full story and it never even got resolved either. So she's literally here just to be a token lesbian. And I just think, that's bad writing. Finally, they discover Ring doorbell footage of the fake doctor taking his dad away. And then we see that after the fake doctor melted Anthony's head as well, we didn't get to see that fully. They cut away. They actually kind of made it into a joke, too. They cut away, and they kind of made it like, ha 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 ha, he was talking back to her, and she's melting his head a little bit now. Ha 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 ha, he's dying, he's getting killed now. Ha 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 ha. Well, then we see Anthony's body in a cocoon. So this is probably just like... there's also a revelation where Joe Jr. says that he remembers being in a cocoon. So it's possible we will get to see Anthony come back, hopefully, because we need him. The show is not good without Ross. There's only 2 episodes left, because it's a modern TV show, but still, like, we need Ross on the show. Otherwise, it will not go well, as it already did not go well this episode. And then, this is the worst part. I already gave the episode an F at this point for multiple reasons, but the worst part, the very worst part, is that after all of this stuff happened, and keep in mind, I said that the music was good this episode, and that it was like scary music. All of a sudden, when the credits start, they start playing like weird, like Latin music. And I'm saying that it's weird because this music doesn't fit with the episode in any way, shape, or form. Just like all the other rap music in the show, but it's like all of a sudden in the ending credits, we don't hear Goosebumps music because, this is Goosebumps, but, it's almost like the people who made the show don't really like Goosebumps, even though they're making a Goosebumps show, which is kind of funny, but it's music that has nothing to do with the show. Like, it was never played at any point in the episode. It's just randomly there in the end credits. It is so jarring. It is so bad. It is so bad. I don't understand why the people who made the first season were allowed to come back and make another terrible season. What were they thinking? Just let's play some random Latin music song. I mean, it's a good song. Like, it's not a bad song, but it's the fact that it doesn't fit at all. It would have been like, all of a sudden, like a Barbie song started playing at the end of a Goosebumps episode. That's what it was like. And it was so stupid. It was so dumb. So I give this episode an F. I feel bad because the girl who played Hannah, she could have been in a good adaptation of the story from the book, but instead she got to be in this, and oh God. So anyways, please like this video and comment and tell me what you thought of this terrible episode. These 2 episodes, the last episode was really good until it wasn't. And this episode was really good, but also really bad. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest Goosebumps reviews. You guys know I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that the show is good. And Surprisingly, too, there aren't any fanboys so far in the comments, which is really funny because when we reviewed season 1, we practically got, like, stormed by, like, all these fanboys who just couldn't stop pretending like the show was good. And it seems like, I don't know, like, maybe they moved on to something else. I have no idea what happened, but, like, I don't know. Like, season 1 was really, really bad. And this one it's now pretty much almost as bad. Like, it is a step above. It is, like, in its own distinct level, but it's still really bad. So goodbye, everybody. See you soon for my review of the last 2 episodes of Goosebumps before I forget about the show in a week. So goodbye, everybody. See you soon.